All right, let's see. All right, ready to go.
Thank you. So this is the webinar and Q&A session for both the pre-college and the higher ed funding opportunities for NSHE faculty through Nevada NASA Space Grant Consortium. These are for curriculum development, hands-on training for students and teachers type activities. Let's do introductions really quick before we get going. So I'm Eric Wilcox. I am the recently appointed new director for Nevada NASA Space Grant and Nevada NASA EPSCoR, and I'm an atmospheric scientist at DRI. Gibran, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Gibran Chavez. I work alongside Eric and Michael. I'm based out of the NSHE SPO office, but working both on the NASA Space Grant and NASA EPSCoR. But these two opportunities specifically are under the Space Grant.
And Michael, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Michael Lujan, and I help Gibran and Eric administer the Nevada Space Grant and EPSCoR programs. And I'm based out of the System Administration Office in Las Vegas.
Okay, very good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we'll start with our website, and I'll show you where sorry, I'm just updating my browser. Here we go. And I will show you where the funding opportunities are, and then I will switch over to the actual PDF documents with the solicitations, and we'll try to sort of quickly go through the solicitations and leave enough time for questions. So let me share my screen. Okay, so here is our website for the Nevada NASA programs. The URL you can see up in the top there. If you just Google Nevada NASA Space Grant or Nevada NASA programs or whatever, usually the top link will be here. What we're talking about today is under the funding opportunities. So along the bar at the top of our website, if you click funding opportunities, it will take you to the list of all of our current open funding opportunities, and up at the top is the student opportunities, and then down below it says for faculty, and that's where we are. And the first two here are what we're going to be talking about today. So here's the link for the solicitation for the pre-college teacher training or hands-on training grants, and then right under that is for the higher education curriculum development or hands-on training faculty grants. So each of these has a button where you can click. So I'll click on the pre-college one, and that will take you, if it responds, here we go, to the page for that specific opportunity, and has a little background information about the opportunity. In this case, this is the pre-college, so this is either teacher training for pre-service or in-service teachers interested in teaching STEM subjects in the K-12 educational environment, or hands-on training projects where this would focus on targeting STEM pre-college student experiences with learning opportunities outside of the formal classroom environment. There's eligibility here, which is pretty simple for these grants. Eligibility is basically anybody who is a faculty member at any NSHE system campus. The funding for the pre-college program is $25,000 in federal funds from NASA, and then this requires a one-to-one match. So you'd have to include a $25,000 match from your home institution. And we can talk about the details of that when we look at the solicitation, but that can be in the form of other sorts of in-kind contributions from the institution, not just hard cash, I believe. The activity period here, so these are for grants from the August 2023 to May 2024 timeframe. This is the announcement of the meeting we're having right now. The deadline for both the pre-college and higher education competitions, that deadline will be March 13 at 5 p.m. That's a hard and fast deadline. So proposals have to be submitted complete and in full by that deadline, or we cannot accept your application. We can't accept, nor can we accept a partial application and then final documents after that deadline. As we always say, and I'll probably state again later, we always encourage you to submit a little bit early because we can actually confirm that we've received it and maybe even follow up with you if there's elements that are missing from your application if you submit early. And so for both of these, at the bottom of the background information is a link here that says full solicitation. And that will take you to the PDF document that contains all the details for your proposal. So I'm going to switch over and show those PDF documents in just a minute. But before I do that, I also want to mention that down below here is an actual button where you would submit your proposal. And we ask that you submit your proposal as a complete sort of PDF document with all of the elements, which is described in detail in the solicitation, again, which we'll talk about in a moment. And again, if you get to this step a little bit early and you run into any trouble submitting through the web portal, we can accept also your full proposal by email. And so by finishing up your proposal a little bit early, you can navigate those issues should there be any technical difficulties when you try to submit. So again, the link that says full solicitation will take you to a PDF document. I'm going to switch over to that document. So I'm going to start with the pre-college, and then I'll sort of more quickly walk through the higher ed one because a lot of the elements are fairly similar. So here's the PDF document. On the front page is just some of the same information that was already on that we already saw on the website, including the deadline, March 13, 5 p.m. to submit, the period of performance for these awards, the advertisement for this meeting that we're doing right now. And then right at the top, we always point out that we use the attachment feature in our solicitations. And I have that open on the side here. So that's if you click the little, if you open so this is very important, don't just view the PDF document in your web browser. If you open the PDF solicitation in Adobe Acrobat Reader, then you can click the paperclip here and see these other items that are attached to the solicitation. And these include a number of things. Let me move this over a little bit. Including a template for the cover page, which you will include with your application, as well as the template for the budget in an Excel spreadsheet. We'll talk about the budget elements a little bit later, but this is the budget that you will fill out, probably with help from somebody from your sponsored project office or your business office. And then there's several other documents that are referred to in the solicitation. Mainly these are strategic plan documents from NASA and from the state of Nevada, because we do ask you to make an effort in your proposal to clearly articulate how the activity that you are proposing relates to NASA's science or technology priority areas. In this case, you're developing curriculum or teacher training or hands-on training for students. So how it is that the content that you're providing to those students, how that relates to science or technology priority areas for NASA. And you might also try to link your project to the STEM education and STEM workforce development goals from NSHE, and that's where the NSHE Science and Technology Plan is included here. And then the Governor's Office of Economic Development in Nevada, the state plan is included there, where there's some language in there about STEM and workforce education goals for NSHE and for the state. Okay, so below that is some of the general information about, in this case, the pre-college teacher training and hands-on training activities. So we plan to fund 2 teacher training and/or hands-on training projects in this funding cycle, again, with a $25,000 federal award and a requirement for a $25,000 match from your institution. We plan on making the announcements in the late spring or summer, and then the award period, as we already noted, would begin August 1st for basically for the academic year, the 23-24 academic year. We encourage you in our space grant funding opportunities to involve students and to include funding for that student participation, and to include in your plan for your project how those students will be engaged. We also encourage partnership with other space grant supported projects or NASA centers or scientists or businesses, industry that are engaged in NASA or NASA related activities is encouraged. And then diversity and inclusion is integral to the success of NASA's missions. And so we seek to fund projects that will expose students from a diverse cohort that is to NASA content that is reflective of the diversity and demographics of the state of Nevada. We recommend that you contact your sponsor project office as you develop particularly the budget for your project and work out how to meet the budget obligations, including the one-to-one match. I'll also note that we are available here if there are questions about the budget or what's allowable to include as matching funds. We're available here to answer questions as best we can. Again, all faculty are eligible. Here are the details about the teacher training and the hands-on training activities. Specifically, the teacher training, the primary focus is a teacher training to train pre-service or in-service teachers who teach in STEM subjects in K through 12 environments. And the goal is to infuse the curriculum that those teachers are teaching from, infuse that with NASA-related content. We're particularly interested in training teachers to provide pre-college students with hands-on training or engineering activities, including the development of teams to compete in science and engineering challenges that are relevant to NASA. So NASA has a number of challenges, student-related challenges. So we're particularly interested in funding activities that engage students with those challenges. We will also support the inclusion of STEM activities in the curriculum of educational courses at Nevada's K-12 schools. And we're seeking to support training opportunities for teachers to enhance their knowledge in specific STEM topics and to attract students to STEM disciplines. Proposals that highlight the following specific areas of emphasis are strongly encouraged. So that's an enhancement of STEM materials and content for pre-college classrooms. Activities should involve a population that is representative of Nevada's diversity, which again, I've already mentioned. Should involve inclusion of Title I schools and could involve collaboration with Nevada Space Grant Consortium Learning Center affiliates, and some of those are listed here. These are activities that either are currently or have in the past been funded by Nevada NASA Space Grant to build capacity in the state for this kind of educational activity. So those kinds of collaborations, if they're appropriate for your project, we encourage. So to the extent that your project is making any of these sort of contributions or connections that are listed here, your proposal should clearly articulate that. For the hands-on training projects, these funds are specifically targeted to provide STEM pre-college student experiences for learning outside of formal classroom environments. And then there's some specific bullet points here that we are encouraging. So if your project fits any of these, you should emphasize that and describe how that connection is made in your proposal. Those are extracurricular training and hands-on experience in any NASA mission directorate priority area. And that then refers you back to the attachment list that I talked about earlier. So there's listed here, here it is, FY22 NASA strategic plan. So outlines all of the specific science goals or actually the NASA strategic plan is a fairly broad document. And then there's this additional document, NASA's EPSCoR research topics. That includes some details on each of the NASA mission directorates and what their special focus areas are. So it'd be good to review that. Any questions about those? Also, we're welcome. You're welcome to reach out to us if you have questions about how to link your project or how well your project links to NASA's strategic goals and topic areas. We can help you as best we can to make those connections. The next item, next bullet under hands-on training, projects developing curricular materials and programs to provide pre-college students and with hands-on science or engineering activities, including development of teams to compete in science and engineering challenges that relate to NASA. One example of that would be the Human-Powered Rover Challenge, which is a popular activity that's been funded in the past. Proposers are encouraged to involve a population that is representative of Nevada's diversity and inclusion of students in Title I schools. Collaboration with Nevada NASA Space Grant Learning Center affiliates, as with the other activities. Informal educational activities must include inclusion of supplemental materials regarding NASA's science or engineering related content. Hands-on content must be based on state educational standards and learning objectives. And there's a link there to the Nevada State Department of Education standards documents. Again, feel free to reach out to any of us. My name and contact information is there, but contact information for all three of us, myself, Hebron, and Michael, is at the back of the document. What else do I need to say here? So proposal guidelines. So we ask that specifically your proposal be a single PDF document. It includes a cover page. Again, there's a template that's attached here. So you're just going to fill out that template for your cover page. We ask that you include not more than one page, a summary of results from prior NASA, Nevada NASA Space Grant or Nevada NASA EPSCoR funding. So if you've received funding through our programs before, please list those prior awards here and what the outcomes were. That would be awards from the past 5 years. A CV for the PI and probably other senior participants in the project would be appropriate. And then the details of the proposed project, maximum of 4 pages, must include the title and abstract of 300 words or less. And then again, overall in 4 pages or less, who's involved, the roles and responsibilities of project participants, what those participants will be doing, what are the objectives, the methods, anticipated outcomes of the project, details regarding any collaborations or partners involved, when, so what's a timeline for the project, timeline with milestones and critical steps along the way to execution of the project. Where, so where is the project going to take place? Which campuses, which departments are involved, which schools, if you're going to be on a school site. And then under how, state how the activity will result in enhancement of or provide new materials for procedures or coursework for pre-college programs. State how you plan to conduct outreach to engage students from underrepresented or underserved groups. Provide an evaluation plan, or how will you assess the success or the effectiveness of the project, and then specify how the project relates. Whoops, excuse me. Specify how the project will contribute or how it's aligned with NASA's mission, directorate, technology and research goals. Then there's you include the budget and the budget justification. Again, the budget template is included as an attachment in the document. And then the budget justification should justify how you're going to use those dollars to achieve the goals of the project. Things like proposed travel should include details. Again, engagement of students is encouraged, and so the budget should sort of reflect how you're going to use the dollars to engage students. All reasonable costs are allowable, except for the following: foreign travel. We have a limit to how much overall foreign travel our programs can support. So if you plan foreign travel, you have to get approval from us first. Equipment also, there are some limitations on equipment. So we ask that you check with us first, and we might, in some cases, reach out to our federal sponsors to check if a particular equipment cost is allowable under the funding we receive from NASA. There are some restrictions on Chinese-made equipment that's listed there. So check with us if you intend to buy some expensive equipment. And funds may not be used for construction or remodeling of any facilities. Again, we ask that you submit the proposal as one complete PDF with the elements listed above. It has to be signed by your sponsored project office, or your grants and contracts office, or your business office, whoever is empowered to submit proposals on behalf of your department. Again, reach out to us if there are questions. Please, you may put us in contact with your business staff if there are questions about resolving the budget. Again, there's the one-to-one match requirement, but there is we can't allow in-kind effort and in-kind facility costs and things like that, I believe, as one-to-one match. So we encourage you to reach out to us and myself, and or Hebron and Michael can help answer those questions. I already mentioned that incomplete proposals cannot be received, so please try to get your proposal done and submitted to us prior to the deadline so we can verify all the elements are there. The page limits are as above in the details. Please use 1-inch margins and 12-point font as you make those, as you meet those page requirements. And then we ask that you follow the convention here for the file name for your PDF document. That helps us keep sorted whose proposal is whose and which specific competition that proposal is being submitted for, in this case, pre-college or higher ed. And is it teacher training or is it hands-on training? If your proposal is funded, we'll ask you to provide a headshot or a photo. That's important to us. We have to report back to NASA on the activities, so it's helpful for us to be able to show photos of the activities and the people that we fund. That's what we would use that photo for. Evaluation, we will assemble a panel of faculty from across NSHE to evaluate these proposals. Please, if there are technical elements to your proposal, please try to use language that is understandable to anyone with sort of a broad STEM background. We can't guarantee that faculty who are reviewing your proposal will have any expertise in the specific discipline that your proposal might relate to. So if your proposal is specifically related to a topic like hydrology or space science or something like that, we can't guarantee that there's going to be a hydrologist or a space scientist on the panel. So please use language that is understandable to anyone with sort of a general STEM background. Again, we will evaluate the merits of the project as described in the proposal, the alignment of that proposal with NASA Mission Directorate priorities, how the quality of the plan to engage students, and the plan to engage a diverse assortment of students, the anticipated impact of the project on STEM education and the plans to evaluate that impact, and the budget and the timeline. I sort of already talked about diversity. There's some language here that from NASA specifically that we've quoted on why we encourage engaging a diverse cross-section of students. That's because NASA wants us to. So they are seeking to see evidence that we've done so with these funds. Reporting, if you are selected, we ask that you complete reports, progress reports and final reports for the projects. This reporting is extremely valuable. We have to report back to NASA again how the funds are used. So we use the content that you provide us in your reports to fill out our report and to document the impact of our project. So we have a template for our reports generally for our faculty awards that we will be providing with you if you are selected. And in there you will fill out tables that will help us quantify the impact of your project in terms of how many students, how many teachers, how many students were touched by the project and what the impact was. The other thing is that as we review, we have on rare occasions had problems where faculty have received awards from us and then not reported back in a prompt manner. So we will ask our review panels to consider whether or not a proposal from if a faculty member who has proposed is up to date on their results and their reports from prior awards will be considered in evaluations of proposals this year. So if you have a current or past award from us and you're not up to date on the required reporting for that, please get yourself up to date before submitting your proposal. And then on the bottom here again is our contact information. So that is the pre-college competition. Let me just quickly click over to the solicitation for the higher education competition. I'll go through this one a little bit more quickly and then open it up for questions because much of the content is duplicate. These two programs have the same deadline, again, March 13, 5 p.m. All the same documents are attached here, including the cover page and the budget template that you will use in your proposal. Here are the details on the higher ed competition. These again come in two forms. There is curriculum development competition and hands-on training competition. We seek to fund 4 or more projects that are either curriculum development or hands-on training. These have a maximum federal award of $25,000 and then a requirement for a 1-to-1 institutional match. So that's an additional $25,000 from your institution, again, allowing for in-kind contributions and other things. So please reach out to us with details if you have questions on that. We will announce awards again in the summer period, late spring or summer, and then the same award period, basically August through May of the 2023-24 academic year is when the awards will be active. Same goals here. Student participation is encouraged, diversity, partnerships. So the main difference between the prior solicitation or the pre-college solicitation and the higher ed solicitation is here in the details of the goals. So the curriculum development, the primary focus of the curriculum development program is to establish new and revised courses and materials that infuse NASA content directly related to NASA Mission Directorate priorities into NSHE institutional curricula. Projects that include development of interdisciplinary classes utilizing or implementing NASA Mission Directorate content, as well as senior design courses and senior research projects are encouraged. The goal is to provide college students with NASA science or engineering course content that they would not otherwise receive, which will lead to improved opportunities for careers within NASA or NASA-related businesses. Curriculum development projects should have a clear progression from initiation to classes content actually being offered to NSHE students, and a pathway for the curriculum development to become part of the NSHE institution's curriculum. Again, it's important in your proposal to, excuse me. Sorry about that. It's important to tie your project to NASA's Mission Directorate priorities so that the review panel can see how your project is related to NASA's priorities. And then below that are the details on the hands-on training. Primarily focuses on establishing new, authentic STEM hands-on training activities for college students that utilize NASA-related interdisciplinary content. Topic areas must target topics listed in the NASA Mission Directorate priorities list. Again, there's the documents attached. Proposals may include the development of teams to compete in science or engineering challenges relevant to NASA. For both of these, again, this is just restating what's already been stated. For both the curriculum development and the hands-on training, it's our obligation to use these funds to fund activities that relate to NASA's Mission Directorate priorities. So that link is very important in the review of these proposals. Proposal areas of interest for hands-on training should address one or more of the following: development of programs and new curriculum to provide students with a knowledge base leading to successful employment at a NASA center or a NASA-related industry. Provide engaged interdisciplinary learning by integrating state-of-the-art facilities or equipment. Incorporate faculty workshops, web posts, newsletters, or other media that broaden the information provided by NSHE institutions about successful higher education content developed with your space grant funding. Enhance outreach efforts to recruit more students representative of Nevada's diversity. Explore current NASA Mission Directorate topics. For hands-on training proposals, one option is development of teams, again, to engage in NASA-related engineering design challenges. There's some examples listed there. Create programs that train multiple participants in how to access or utilize unique NASA assets for terrestrial, planetary, or astrophysics research. Develop college or university industry partnerships that train multiple higher education students, including pre-service teachers, in NASA-related topics, such as aerospace science or engineering topics. Engage multiple participants in hands-on activities or research workshops. Develop STEM summer orientation workshops for undergraduates, or lead to or support faculty externships in aerospace industry or NASA centers that are then used to enhance higher education curriculum or hands-on training programs. So to the extent that your proposed project can touch on one or more of any of those bullet points, you'll want to clearly articulate that in your proposal. Otherwise, I believe the rest of this is more or less identical to what's in the pre-college solicitation. It, again, has the same deadline, the same process for submitting, the same elements to the proposal. So the cover page using the template that's attached, results from prior funding through any of our Space Grant or EPSCoR programs and the outcomes of those. Again, if make sure that you're up to date on your reporting. CV for the senior participants in the project, and then the summary of the proposed project. I believe these details are the same as the pre-college solicitation. So all the same elements of the who, the what, the when, the where, and the how. The budget with the same limitations on the budget and the same submission guidelines. Again, adheres strictly to the page limits, please, using 1-inch margins and 12-point font. And use the recommendation here for the format for the file name so that we can make sure that we understand whose proposal is whose and which competition it's for. And then the same evaluation criteria apply that are listed here. Again, we will assemble a panel of NSHE faculty to review these proposals against these criteria. And then we ask that if you are funded, you follow all of the reporting guidelines here and meet our obligations for reporting. And there are our contacts. So those are the two solicitations and all the details. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to open it up for any questions from our two participants.
I just have a question about the equipment part.
Yeah.
So we work with educational robotics, and we have robots that sometimes we purchase, and they're about $250 a piece, or you can buy them in a package, you know, for $3,000 for a class set. Is that equipment or materials and supplies?
I believe that's materials and supplies. Generally, at the federal level, equipment is any one item that costs more than $5,000.
That's what I thought. Okay.
And they have different rules for how indirect cost gets charged on very expensive equipment. So it's materials and supplies, I'm pretty sure. And Habaran can correct me if I'm wrong. And you'll just want to include those details in your budget justification, and it should be allowable.
Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with Eric's interpretation of that. I would qualify that under materials and supplies.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit more about matching, where you said time and effort, and some of those can count towards in-kind and the matching?
Yeah, I kind of have to defer to Habaran on this because he would have more experience than I in what's really allowable for this.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's something that I would encourage you to speak to your particular either business manager or just OSP office, the sponsor projects, because they'll have a lot of experience doing this for other faculty. But generally speaking, so it doesn't have to be dollar for dollar, in the sense that it could be additional time. Of your time, for example, right? Like obviously you have a particular contract with the institution, but if you work additional hours, that can be counted towards the project. Rental facilities, if facilities are typically rented out, to the public, for example, there's a certain rate that the university will have for that. If you can get that essentially for free for you, you can count that as part of the match towards towards the project.
Okay.
It's things of that nature where you typically see. That's what we mean by in kind. It doesn't have to be actual cash. It doesn't have to be
Okay.
real cash. It can be things like hours, tracking hours. It could be unrecovered FNA if you're using some sort of a state source to sort of to try to match that. That there's a percentage that would be deferred essentially through FNA. So there's a lot of different ways, and usually we're limited in the we're limited by the institutions in the sense that the institution itself is the one that's responsible for tracking that. So it's mostly whatever they're willing to do. So that's why they would be more. It's a conversation to have with them
Okay.
over me, because I can tell you how some people have done it in the past, but you know when the rubber hits the road, it's really going to be your SPO office who ends up tracking it. So they'd be more than willing to help you. They're usually very very open, and again, this is something that happens all the time because this is a very normal matching guideline for federal grants.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, like I think Claire, like the questions that I was going to ask, Claire asked them, so that was good on my end.
Okay, very good. Well, if that's the case, then we're going to go ahead and wrap up the session, and Michael's going to make sure that the recording gets posted on our website, so anybody who missed this meeting hopefully can catch it up there. So thank you for attending. Thank you, Michael and Hebron, for helping out. And we look forward to receiving your proposals.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.